I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
Makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
How you like that, boy?
You know what day it is. That's right. You know what day. It's Trump reinstatement. Oh my God. Trump reinstatement day. August 13th. Friday the 13th, which is very apt, by the way. All right, so obviously we're going to have a little bit of fun with that. But hey, welcome to the show. Fun stories for you today. Also some important stuff as well. We've got Mike Pillow. Of course, Mike Pillow. You know you love it. We have Louis Gohmert warning about exploding birds. We got Fox News dehumanizing the poor. We got comedians going after Ron DeSantis. That's always fun. And we also, we're going to talk about, so that's the fun stuff. We're also going to talk about the corporate Democrats are trying to tank the reconciliation package. So we're actually going to start out with that story. Very important stuff. So here we go again. Corporate Democrats trying to stop the Biden agenda. Oh, that's interesting. I thought they were real Democrats, unlike people like Bernie Sanders. Weird. All right, so anyway, we've got that. Those are fun stories. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Very important that you do so. In fact, I'm trying to figure out how to share the stream on Twitch because apparently I have no idea what I'm doing. So that does not bode well. So if you could share it, I'd appreciate that. Ravaging Wolverine, thank you for resubbing with Prime for 10 months. Hey, awesome. Speaking of Twitch, last night, if you haven't checked it out already, I was on the Humanist Report, playing video games and talking politics. That was fun. Check out his channel, of course, at twitch.tv/Humanist Report, just all one word. And you could check out that stream. Really, really good discussion and just overall fun. So I love Mike. All right. So anyway, with that, and by the way, give him a follow if you haven't already, Twitch followers, because based, super based. All right. That said, let's dive into something that is not based. We're going to talk about corporate Democrats. It appears that 9 corporate House Democrats are threatening to tank the $3.5 trillion reconciliation package unless they get their demands. Now, what are their demands? Well, according to CNN, these so-called moderates or conservative Democrats recently sent a letter to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi demanding that she give not the reconciliation package, but the bipartisan infrastructure package a vote first in the House. They said, quote, "We will not consider voting for a budget resolution until the bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act passes the House and is signed into law." The letter to Pelosi said. That letter, of course, was led by Representative Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey, the co-chairman of the bipartisan, quote-unquote, Problem Solvers Caucus, which, let's be honest, they seem to be causing more problems than solving, okay? And so they're a front for large corporate donors. Those of you who are not familiar, of course, with those groups, along with Third Way. Now, the letter is signed by Representatives Gottheimer, Vicente Gonzalez of Texas, Philemon Vela of Texas, Jared Golden of Maine, Ed Case of Hawaii, Kurt Schrader of Oregon, and Henry Cuellar of Texas, as well as Jim Costa of California and Carolyn Bordeaux of Georgia. So now, one name that really stuck out for me was Henry Cuellar. Henry Cuellar is one of, if not, the most corrupt Democrat in the House. So now, Cuellar's top contributor, by the way, is the oil and gas sector. According to OpenSecrets.com, he received about $219,782 in campaign donations or legalized bribes, essentially, from oil and gas. So Cuellar, and keep that in mind, by the way, that figure is statistically significant because Cuellar has teamed up with these other so-called moderates, and basically they're going to do what the donors tell them to do. And what the donors want is the bipartisan bill, which was crafted around not only Republicans, but of course to appeal to corporate Democrats. So there's a lot of giveaways to corporations and oil and gas. And of course, they leave out a lot of the really important human infrastructure, as well as, well, stuff dealing with climate change. So that's really important. So, and by the way, physical infrastructure is incredibly popular among the business class because guess who uses that physical infrastructure the most? Corporations. So yeah, so we have a lot of investments in that bipartisan bill that would do a lot of, again, investment in the oil and gas industry. So now, I mentioned climate change being left out of the bipartisan bill. So now, you all heard about the IPCC report. I talked about it on the show. That report is described by the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres as a, quote, code red for humanity. He said in a statement, "The alarm bells are deafening. The report must sound a death knell for coal and fossil fuels before they destroy this planet." So now, the bipartisan bill, as I said, leaves that out, but the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill, crafted by House, Senate progressives, with Chairman Bernie Sanders leading the way. And by the way, this is smaller than what Chairman Sanders had actually originally came up with, but they settled on $3.5 trillion, which is a pretty significant amount of money. So now it's pretty serious, right? So now back to the bipartisan bill. That includes provisions called asset recycling. Now that's a fancy way of saying we're going to privatize. We're going to sell off public infrastructure to private corporations who will then control and monetize it to the end of time. Meaning toll roads for people who had already paid for those roads through their taxes, doesn't matter. There you go. Now, again, there's a lot of bad stuff in the bill. There's some good things as well. They are, of course, doing some investments in drinking water infrastructure, including $10 billion to address PFAS substances. That's the polyfluoroalkyl substance. I apologize, I'm not really good at saying that stuff. And of course, there's investments in broadband, $42.5 billion for broadband equity access and deployment, and $16 billion for energy efficiency and renewable energy. and also appropriates about $15 billion to replace lead pipes. So now I point that out because that's literally what's in the bill. And so I want to be honest about representing what is in, because a lot of us focus on the bad, and there is a lot of bad. As I said, asset recycling is awful. It's a ridiculous idea. But there's also some good things in it. Okay. Now, that said, I'm going to go into my criticism here and say that this is not enough. Obviously, on lead pipes alone, replacing all of them would actually cost, with estimates ranging up to about $60 billion, according to the American Water Works Association. So there's a lot of stuff to, there's a lot of spending that needs to happen, which is why it's so incredibly important to pass the $3.5 trillion reconciliation package that does not require Republicans to get on board. It requires but it requires 50 votes to get through the Senate. So now, look, that $3.5 trillion package, it fills in a lot of holes of what's left out of this, bipartisan deal. In fact, some of the things it also expands on is human infrastructure. Things like expanded Medicare and including coverage for dental, hearing, and vision in that program. Hey, look, that's good. It's a step forward. It's not Medicare for all. We're not there yet, but we got to keep pushing, and this is a step. Now, there's also, of course, funding for home care for the elderly, as well as children, child care, and, of course, spending on, like I mentioned, climate change, which is the defining issue, all right, of this country. So we need to do both, and it matters that we pass both of these, that the Democrats can pass both of these in tandem. Now, what these corporate Democrats are trying to do is they're saying, no, we don't want to pass them in tandem. We want to pass the bipartisan one first. Now, if that happens, well, then the $3.5 trillion package, that's not gonna happen. Because what happens is that you lose, if you allow that to go forward first, you lose your leverage. Right now, House progressives are saying, no, we're not going to pass the bipartisan bill unless you do this in tandem. So that's very important, and that's one of their strategies of actually trying to get both of these things passed, right? So there will be, like I said, if they get their way, there will be no leverage on people like Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, John Tester, or Mark Warner to support the reconciliation package as is. They're going to block it. Okay. So now it's very important, like I said, that you pass these things both at the same time, or I would rather have them pass the $3.5 trillion package first and get it to Biden's desk, and then they can go and do that $1.1 or $1.2 trillion. So now, what's good to see, and I hope they keep it up, but you've got House progressives that are actually using their leverage and saying, no, we're not going to bow to the demands of this so-called centrist minority, these conservative Democrats, especially when we have most of the House caucus on board. And so right now they're standing their ground. Right now they're using their leverage. In fact, here's a tweet from AOC on Wednesday. She tweeted about this story, quote, conservative, quote, House Democrats, let's stop pretending that Democrats who threaten to tank the president's agenda, kill child care, Medicare expansion, and work with GOP to expand the cruelest parts of our immigration system are moderate. They are not moderate, they're conservative. It was clear from the beginning that the way a skinny bill gets a shot is if it's part of a larger infrastructure package. Voting on the skinny lobbyist-friendly bill first gives conservatives leeway to hurt the larger infrastructure bill with child care, Medicare, climate, etc. Nope. So again, we've got 9 corporate Democrats. They're wanting to tank Biden's agenda. So now let's get something straight, right? So we have this discussion here a lot about who's a real Democrat, right? Bernie Sanders is not a real Democrat. People like Nina Turner, they're not real Democrats. You think that, first of all, Bernie Sanders literally crafted the $3.5 trillion package. And it didn't include a lot of the things that he wanted to include. But Bernie Sanders, he's a team player, and that matters on Capitol Hill. I know it makes a lot of us progressives frustrated, and I understand that, and I agree with that. Sometimes I'm pretty frustrated as well. But again, there is that reality in Congress where you kind of have to go along in order to get at least some good things through. And this is an example of that. And there are good things that are in this, along with the bad. So that said, right? Who's the real Democrat here? Well, it's not the people who are blocking Biden's agenda, which is not the progressives. It's the so-called centrist Democrats, the conservative Democrats. And they are actually in stated opposition to the majority of the Democratic caucus. Even House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, it's rare that I give her credit on the show, all right? But she says, we're not going to let you hold up the reconciliation bill. I'm actually going to stay here and, I'm going to try to get this caucus in line, right? You go with us, or we're not going to vote on the bipartisan bill at all. All right, so now let me give you some details on that. Pelosi for weeks has made clear that the consensus within her caucus was to hold up the infrastructure bill until the Senate approves the larger Democratic-only bill. A move aimed at pressuring moderate Senate Democrats to back the massive package, but also ease concerns among House progressives that the $1.2 trillion infrastructure didn't go far enough. A senior Democratic aide told CNN that, quote, there are not sufficient votes to pass the bipartisan infrastructure bill this month. This is only 9. There are dozens upon dozens who will vote against the bipartisan infrastructure package unless it's after the Senate passes reconciliation. So understand that right now, the progressives on this issue are actually winning. Isn't that amazing? And I know a lot of us, we don't look at this because it doesn't have things like Medicare for All in it, or, even more climate spending, which again, I'm going to argue is super, super important, and I wish they would go further. But looking at this, they are actually holding their ground on this, and you've got to give them some credit for that, because they could easily have folded to the conservative Democrats. And again, I guess if you're going to be cynical, you could say, well, it's not over yet. I mean, they're taking a month-long vacation. They're going to come back. They're going to vote on this in September, October. And so, anything can happen between then and now. But for right now, it seems like House progressives have been exerting their pressure on the rest of the caucus in order to try to push this larger reconciliation package. And I think that's a good thing. Now, the new letter also comes 2 days after Pelosi reiterated to her caucus on a private call. So this is private Pelosi, all right? She says that there will be no vote in the House on the bipartisan infrastructure bill until the Senate passes reconciliation. That position is in line with the House's progressive Democrats who have threatened to withhold their support for the infrastructure bill unless the reconciliation proposal is approved by the Senate. The speaker said on the call that she is, quote, not freelancing on her position on holding back passing the bipartisan bill until reconciliation is done. That is the consensus. The president has said he's all for the bipartisan approach. Bravo, that's progress, but it ain't the whole vision. So now that's important. And there's another reason here too. And it's because of how popular this is. So this is an incredibly popular. The $3.5 trillion package is actually much more popular than the $1.2 trillion package. In fact, let me give you a poll here. This is from, let's see. Let's get the poll here. It is from Data for Progress. So that's the sort of centrist think tank, right? So they did a poll, and it turns out that not only do most Democrats support the $3.5 trillion, the bigger package, most independents also, and even a majority of Republicans. Well, let me give you the numbers on that, because that's really interesting. So now overall, 2/3, 66% of all voters say they backed congressional package of the $3.5 trillion plan. Only 26 respondents said that they were opposed to the proposal. Support was particularly high among Democrats, with 85% backing the, and this is important, right? When I put this in the context, it's important because this was crafted by Senate Budget Committee Chairman Bernie Sanders, that $3.5 trillion package. I mean, right away, that it completely blows out of the water all the so-called, Democrats' criticism of Bernie Sanders not being a team player and not being able to get people together to do compromise, blows all that out of the water. So now also, let me give you the Republicans on this. Now, it turns out the survey also found that 47% of GOP voters backed that legislation, and now also to go along with that, about 44% of Republicans said that they were against it. So you even have a massive majority of the country. 66% understand that it would be a super majority. The American people want this. And you've got these corporate Democrats. These legislators that are backed by giant multinational corporations, oil and gas companies, who don't want this infrastructure. They only want the 1.2. They only want the bipartisan because it helps them, and they're against the $3.5 trillion. So that's where those stand. Okay, that's where we stand here. But I just want to say that this is a good example so far of House progressives actually being able to successfully leverage their power. It might actually be successful. Now, we don't know for sure. But $3.5 trillion in new spending, that is not insignificant. If they can do this, now look, mainstream media is going to hail this as the most important thing that's ever happened. Oh my God, the most amazing thing. Look at the bipartisanship. But in reality, it's not, but it's incredibly necessary, nonetheless. So, and it should be a stepping stone, of course, to get us to do more and push further. To completely disregard this as progress would be irresponsible. And as irresponsible as saying that this amount of spending and that this bill is the end-all, be-all, and, oh my God, I can't believe we've solved all our problems. No, there's nuance here. There's a nuanced position, and that's important to remember. And so I'm hoping that, once again, House progressives continue to press their leverage, and what we need to do is we need to support them in that push and provide them with the backup to help stop these corporate Democrats from being able to put a stop to this, from tanking this entire thing. I'll also add that this is a great test of progressive power in the House. It's really, really important that we actually win this one. And I hope we do. All right. Moving on. Go to Mike Pillow. You know what? Let me actually read some comments here first. Crazy Hawaiian PA. Thank you for resubbing for a month at Tier 1. Appreciate that. Let's see. Yay, time has flown by. Jeff, thank you, Jeff, for all the great content. Keep the awesome work. Let's see. Yes, Mike. Of course, we have to do the Mike Pillow story. Awesome. Fucking hilarious. You know we have to. You know. Let's see. They seem to know how to pick their fights. No. Yeah. And apparently that's what you have to do to do some amount of success. All right. Pillowcase. You know what day it is. It's reinstatement day. Yes, the day that former President Donald Trump is supposed to return in office in a wave of glory and evidence that is supposed to be presented by Mike Pillow's highly hyped cyber symposium. Now, of course, the good question is, okay, well, it's August 13th. Well, where's the evidence? Well, CNN reporter Donnie O'Sullivan actually got a chance to ask Lindell about that evidence, and here's how that went.
If you're correct, if you have that evidence...
No, why, just forget about the evidence. If I'm right that China took our country right now, do you care? Would that bother you? Would that bother you?
But you have to show the proof for it,
No,
right?
would that bother you?
Of course it would.
Okay.
Were you given any data at all from the 2020 election? Anything useful, anything that would show any sort of fraud?
We were not given any kind of raw data which we would even be able to start to look in that.
But if your stuff is legit, if the data is legit, wouldn't it be better for you to hand it over to as many cyber experts as possible?
You know why? I'll give you the answer. Because I've been told that they can go out there and corrupt it and make fake stuff and put fake news out. So I don't need your people to go out and doctor the evidence and put out on Mike Lindell's a conspiracy theory.
But you have been saying for months, media, experts, everybody come, see the data.
We're showing it right on screen right now. So you can't sit here and do a hit piece when it's on screen right now.
To your knowledge, was anything on those screens proof of Lindell's claims that the election had been stolen?
Based on everything we found, that is meaningless. There was nothing there you can compare to draw any conclusions.
Womp, womp. Oh. Yeah, it was nothing. Oh, okay, hey, where's the evidence, right? Evidence. Evidence? I don't need no stinking evidence. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Evidence? You were supposed to provide proof. Where's the proof? There's no proof. This is what I was saying. Now, here's the thing. Here's what's interesting, right? So I could go on about, okay, there's no proof of this, blah, blah, blah. It's been debunked 100 times. But I actually wanted to go something a little bit more interesting about this. Notice, okay, he got pretty mad, for one, when they asked about proof, and then said, forget about the evidence. Wouldn't you care if China took our country? Wouldn't you care? Why don't you care? Okay, well, again, this language is actually supposed to have an emotional appeal behind it. Now, this appeal, of course, works for conservatives, right? And it's, oh my God, you're right. I totally care about America. America's the best. Oh, I can't let the China's people steal our country. Oh God, no, you're right. Who needs evidence? Again, that works with conservatives, but not on everyone else. And it's a good cover for, for not having any evidence. Bro, believe me, I got the evidence. Really? Okay, can I see the evidence? No, you can't see the evidence. This is the Simpsons episode with the steamed hams, but in real life. Oh, you're telling me that you have a full Aurora Borealis localized directly in your kitchen? Yes. Can I see it? No. What? Steamed hams. This is steamed hams. Jesus. Oh, but you don't understand, Jeff. He's got 37 terabytes of packet captures. Right. Sure. No, he's got nonsense. And by the way, his own cyber guy, Josh Merritt, called this entire thing a turd. Merritt told the Washington Times in a recent interview that these so-called packet captures that he was showing on the screen, right? That's his evidence from the 15-minute documentary, so-called documentary, that the packet captures are, quote, unrecoverable, and that Lindell's data cannot prove any malfeasance from China. When did this guy get on the CCP payroll? The Chinese Communist Party. When did they buy off that cybersecurity expert? That's what I'm wondering. Yeah. So, No. Anyway, here's the quote. This is my favorite quote. We were handed a turd, and I had to take that turd and turn it into a diamond. And that's what I think we did. Yes, a turd.
Dumps. Big, massive dumps.
That's what you got. Big, massive dumps. Still a turd. A turd will always be a turd, no matter how much you try to polish it. And that, speaking of turds, that was the entire cyber symposium. So now I have one more video here that's going to show you just a complete and utter delusion of Mike Lindell.
God gave me this platform for such a time as this. Right. And so it's like I already know I'm going to win. You know what I mean? I already know I'm going to win.
You know you're going to win. Is this what winning looks like? My head isn't spinning yet. But, like, is this weird how winning seems like losing? Interesting. No facts, no logic, no evidence, just God did it. No, this guy is, look, mentally disturbed, but he's also a grifter. As expected, this entire symposium actually turned out to be a giant MyPillow ad. And that's what it was. I mean, he took every opportunity to plug his website and his special promo code for cheaper pillows. Because who doesn't want a deal on a pillow? Of course. Oh my God. But here's the thing. You can be both a true believer and a grifter. And look, Mike Lindell is a perfect example of why you should never get high on your own supply. Because that's what he's done. And like Trump, because they have so much in common, Lindell is not going to pass on an opportunity to make a quick buck off his fellow believers. I mean, and to be honest, like I said, a grifter, being a grifter and a true believer really does fit into their really warped sense of Christianity. Where if you're rich, if you made money, well, then God obviously has to be on your side, regardless of how you made that money. Oh, to suffer the stuffer? Oh, that's good. Y'all, try my new snake oil pillow. Good shit. All right. So that was my pillow. Let's move on. We're going to talk about exploding birds. We just got a cavalcade of crazy going on today. Representative Louis Gohmert, Texas, has a warning. Don't fund solar panels unless you want the birds to explode. Watch.
Well, and another part of that Green Deal is the huge solar farm that they have out on the border of California and Nevada, thousands of acres of concave mirrors that magnify the sun toward 3 towers, heat up the liquid in there and turn turbines. But they weren't anticipating that there would be hundreds and thousands of what they would call flamers, because when the birds fly through, if they survive the windmills, then they hit that magnified sun, explode in flame, and down they go, bird guts all over the mirrors. So that takes some cleaning up. This is the green stuff that's just out of control and is going to bring the nation down.
Exploding birds. They're called flamers. No, they're not. Please do not do a Google search on flamer. Okay, let's not do that. Or else Louis Gohmert's head would explode. Being, how he's incredibly anti-gay. All right, so he says we can't do solar panels because exploding birds. We can't do the windmills because, chopped up birds. But somehow oil and gas is okay. Oh, right. Sure. Look, the reality here is oil and gas and climate change in general, as a result of the emissions from fossil fuels, is actually really deadly towards the bird population. In fact, I've got some numbers here. An estimated 500,000 to 1 million birds a year are killed as a result of oil pits, oil fields. This is according to the Bureau of Land Management back in a 2012 memo. Roughly 7.9 million birds may be killed by the coal industry, according to an analysis by Benjamin K. Selvacool, director of the Danish Center for Energy Technology. 350,000 birds, of course, to compare, are killed by crashing into wind turbines. Now you might think, oh, that's a lot. That's a lot of birds. Oh my God. What's going to happen to all the birds? Well, let me give you a number that's going to blow your mind. In the United States alone, outdoor cats actually kill about approximately 2.4 billion birds a year. Billion. Now, come on, dude. What? That seems unfathomable. What a gigantic number. That can't be right. No, I double-checked it. It's right. Now, does Louis Gohmert support banning the cats? No, I would hope not. I love cats. I have a cat. I've got 2. So I don't want to ban the cats. But does he? No. Instead, he wants to ban solar panels. And so here's the thing. He doesn't actually care about the birds, obviously. Now, he's using this, we've got these special solar arrays that'll blow up the birds, and they turn into flamers, and, they explode, and so we can't do that. Look at me. I care about the birds. I care about nature. Why don't you care? Why don't you care? Well, we do. Climate change threatens the bird population and also threatens the human population. As the Audubon Society notes, who, by the way, said also the kind of solar array that Gohmert was talking about, they're actually against. So they're against that type of solar array. But even then, they say, quote, all energy development has some impact on habitats and wildlife. But in the big picture, the threat of climate change poses a greater risk to entire species than renewable energy installations generally pose to individual birds. So, while birds may explode or land on solar panels, I don't think they actually literally explode. They're more likely to die by climate change, industry, and outside cats. But Louis Gohmert doesn't want to do anything about at least the first couple of things. Climate change. Now, see, and here's the thing. He doesn't because he is paid to not do anything about this, about climate change. He's actually paid to derail any sort of progress on oil and gas, any efforts to replace oil and gas with alternative energy sources like wind and solar. And he's using the birds to try to do some, make an argument, while at the same time somehow just sounding like a gigantic moron. Look, this is a Republican Party. As I keep telling you, they ain't sending their best. How many birds are killed by planes each year? You know what? That's a good question. Planes also kill birds. More so than solar panels, I'm sure. Let's do some live research here. How many birds killed by planes? birds are killed by planes. Just 13,000 bird strikes annually. So in reality, actually, oh, okay, hold on. 9,000. So what I'm seeing is two different numbers here. About 9,000 to 13,000 birds are struck by planes annually. But pilots don't actually have to report inconsequential bird strikes. So that number is, according to them, twice as high. So we're looking at a possibility of about 18 to 20,000 birds a year. When you compare that, of course, to the 500,000 to 1 million birds that die in oil pits, oil fields alone, oil and gas. Birds kill planes sometimes too. Yeah, oh yeah, I remember seeing that. All right. Moving on here. Apparently, we've got an animal theme going on today, or at least for these couple of segments. A conservative guest on Fox News thinks that poor people should be treated and starved like dogs. Take a look.
We're incentivizing people to stay home. What if we gave that additional unemployment benefits to employers to incentivize people to go to work?
Well, what if we just cut off the unemployment? I mean, hunger is a pretty powerful thing. I don't mean physical hunger, because people who truly are in need help. I'm talking about people who can work but refuse to work.
I have a friend in the military who trains military dogs, Laura, and they only feed a military dog at night because a hungry dog is an obedient dog. Well, if we're not causing people to be hungry to work, then we're providing them with all the meals they need sitting at home.
Okay. Yikes. What in the actual fuck? Now, that was on Laura Ingram's show, and this John Taffer guy, not good. So let me just point out how, by the way, this is not only dehumanization, of course, but it's actually the capitalist mindset. Starve people enough so they have to work. So they want to be hungry for work, or in this case, literally hungry. And he uses this example. Here's the thing. No, I don't believe the military starves dogs. For one, that's animal abuse. But again, he goes on to dehumanize real human beings. And this is what they do. They call people on welfare leeches and dogs and, drains in society, drags in society, the dregs. It's gross, incredibly gross. How can you hear that and be like, oh, no, totally fine, nailed it. Fuck them boars. Lazy. So now this is in the context, as she said, why don't you just end the enhanced unemployment benefits? I mean, that were created by the pandemic. Here's the thing. We still have a spike in COVID cases thanks to the Delta variant. Not only that, but here's the thing. Those benefits are not contributing to the so-called labor shortage. In fact, one study found that increasing unemployment checks in the pandemic didn't cause a drop in unemployment at all. In fact, people kept looking for jobs at the same rate as before, and employers actually didn't struggle to find employees any more than usual. And when extra benefits did abruptly expire last July, middle of the pandemic, by the way, when we didn't even have the vaccine, there was no sudden increase in the number of people that were working. You know why? It's because people have legitimate reasons to have not worked. and still do. And let me give you a couple of those reasons, by the way. For one, many families still don't have childcare. There's no universal childcare in this country. Only about half of all schools have fully resumed in-person classes, and with, of course, the Delta variant targeting children more often now than previous variants of COVID-19, well, that poses a huge, huge problem for in-person schooling. You also have a lack, as I said, of providers, childcare providers that have opened up, and we don't have, as I said, universal childcare to help those people. And we also have pay. Of course, that's really important. That was way too low, which is why companies who raise their wages are actually doing better at finding employees and reducing turnover than companies who refuse to raise their wages at all. So now, getting back to this guy, right? Is there any question whether or not he actually raised his wages? I think we all know the answer to that. I think that the reason that nobody wants to work for his ass is because, not because of unemployment, but because you don't want to pay his workers. You don't want to pay his workers fair wages, a living wage. So now he's going to accuse people to, well, you know what? You're just sucking off the government. We should get rid of your unemployment benefits. But here's what, hold on. I just found something interesting. Oh, would you look at that? Is that a government handout in the form of a Paycheck Protection Program loan? No, 2 of them, actually. Look at that. Total of $60,000 for John Taffer. Interesting. So now I guess he wasn't, hungry enough for work not to take that free handout. Maybe we should, I don't know, starve him of all these handouts to see how he fares. So one last point, going back to that hungry dog analogy. It's not only, again, dehumanizing and indicative of animal abuse, which is horrifying. At the same time, hungry dogs, you would think actually would be more aggressive and predatory because people are desperate. The dogs are desperate and have to eat. And so you would think that it would make them less obedient. I mean, we all watch, I don't know about you, but I remember Game of Thrones, and Ramsay Bolton had a bunch of dogs. He loved starving his dogs and then sicking them on people until, of course, he got eaten by his own dogs. Oops. Well, I mean, to make this bad comparison, probably worse, what do you think will happen specifically to rich people if human beings were allowed to go hungry en masse? Are you sure you want to think about that? I mean, do you want to go there? You might not have heard the phrase "eat the rich," but if you keep going with this incredibly cruel and inhumane position, well, you might find out. Hungry dogs form packs and target what normally would have been too big for them. Sounds like dogs turn socialist when hungry. Remember the French Revolution? Ah, yes. Eid. The rich aren't... Oh, yeah, the rich aren't taking showers, so we won't eat. Oh, that's such a good point. You see, like, all these celebrities are like, oh, I haven't taken a shower in like 3 fucking months, man. I would taste pretty bad. Please don't eat me. Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. All right. Is this taking a dark turn? Does it not always take a dark turn? I think so. All right. Let's see. one more story for y'all before we head out for the weekend. But first, I'm ready to a couple super chats before we do that. Gabby Mathis says, love your dragon shirt. Thank you. I appreciate that. Dr. Sippy McScoot says, I could post a Doom 2 game code from 1994 and say it was hacked voting machine data from China and people wouldn't know better. That's a good point. How do they know? A lot of these people, understand, they have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to computers and code. Again, this who Lindell is trying to appeal to here, that crowd are people that rely on younger people to open their PDFs. So I'm just saying, they have no idea what they're talking about. None. So ridiculous. All right, on Twitch, Crazy Hawaiian and PN, thank you. Sorry, Crazy Hawaiian and PA said gifted a 1 month tier 1 sub. Appreciate that. Hey, if you want to help the Twitch channel, you can help out as well. All right. $37 terabytes. What's a PDF? All right. Earlier this week, comedian Bill Burr went off on Governor Ron DeSantis. This is as Florida continues to suffer a massive wave of the Delta variant of coronavirus. Look, their hospitals are being slammed, 90% capacity. And in fact, on Friday, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, this is last Friday, reported 23,903 new coronavirus cases in Florida. That has been the highest single-day total in the state since the beginning of the pandemic, and it has not gotten much better. In fact, a fifth of all new U.S. infections and current hospitalizations come from the Sunshine State, according to the Washington Post. And look, it's not just Florida. Of course, you have Texas, you have Mississippi, Louisiana. Mississippi literally has had to call in the USNS Comfort, the hospital ship, because their hospitals are flooded with COVID patients. So it's pretty bad. So now, Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, well, what's he doing about it? Nothing. In fact, he's literally blocking mask mandates. He's saying we will have no mask mandates, even for kids returning to school. In fact, here's what he said on that. We can either have a free society or we can have a biomedical security state. And I can tell you, Florida, we're a free state. So now, comedian Bill Burr of The Mandalorian decided to, well, respond to that statement on his podcast. Let's listen.
DeSantis, whoever this guy is, and they have the most grumpiest looking photo ever. This guy is starting to build his stature in 2024. And he says he disagrees on mask mandates. These kids aren't wearing masks. The amount of people who not only don't even own a microscope or even have a pair of scrubs, you know, unless they went to some Halloween party, who are literally questioning doctors. It's just, at this point, it's just hilarious. What do you know? These pieces of politicians. He knows that that's what his fan base wants him to do, so that's what the he's going to do. Unbelievable.
Nice. So for one, I love it because it's true. DeSantis is 100% pandering to his audience. Remember, their modern Republican Party, the death cult. As bad as the Democrats are, not exactly a death cult. So let's be fair about that, okay? Let's be honest. Now, you've got people who, by the way, do not know anything about epidemiology. Now, well, they're suddenly experts. They suddenly did their research, all right? And now, of course, their research includes seeing memes on Facebook and shitty YouTube videos from quacks. And, of course, just random like YouTube hosts and Spotify. Now, to be fair, of course, Bill Burr is on Spotify, but here's the thing. I'll get to that actually a little bit later. But first, imagine believing that you know more than experts who have devoted their lives to studying viruses and how they work. See, this is why I get irritated. And I defend Dr. Fauci. Now, look, Fauci, let's be honest, he's made missteps, he's made mistakes. Telling people not to wear a mask early on in the pandemic, that was a mistake. And look, he deserves criticism for that. Not a good move. But also, let's be honest, if he had, what do you think would happen? Well, I think there would have been a run on masks. There would have been a few jackasses that would have hoarded all the N95s. You know how I know that? It's because, well, they did the same thing with toilet paper. It's human nature to panic. It's human nature to hoard during a panic. And so, still, I would have personally, since I am a rational person, it would have been nice to know that masks were effective in order to avoid, first of all, confusion and all that. But and I wish, of course, we would have been we as a society would have been in a better position and had been more rational, so that we could have handled the truth without going apeshit. But anyway, now Burr also pointed out correctly that DeSantis might have some presidential aspirations. No surprise. I don't know how he'd do against Trump if Trump decides to run in 2024. That is a slightly interesting question, but probably for another time, to be fair. But it is interesting how this is noted, not only in a lot of articles, but as I said, Burr had talked about it. And of course, look, Ron DeSantis is basically mini Trump. He's one of the most Trumpian. I'm not sure if he is the most Trumpian, but he's one of the most Trumpian, governors out there. And so it's not surprising that he goes in this direction, because what I see going on in the Republican Party is they're all participating in a dumb-off. Like, how stupid, how cruel can we get in order to get the hogs on our side? And it is costing lives. It is costing lives. So now Burr also previously went after anti-vaxxers, which I love. He said that they were full of shit. And he said, I'll tell you right now, if they came out with a shot that gave you a flat stomach and abs, all these same people that said, you ain't effing with my freedom, they'd be right down there getting that effing thing. 100%. Oh, hell, I'd get it. Well, I already got the vaccine. You know, I'm like team, House Pfizer over here, but I wouldn't be surprised. Here's the thing, too, about that. So now I know there's a lot of people that offer, or states that are offering incentives. It turns out it's not really incentives that will spur people to get the vaccine. In reality, it actually does come down to mandates. And I know that's a thing that a lot of people, understandably, kind of cringe away from and think, oh, no, mandate's bad. But if you think about it, and there's actually a poll here about vaccine mandates. And basically, they told people, okay, if you were to be mandated to have a vaccine in order to go to a gym or in order to, fly, for example, I believe the highest response was, well, if I was required to get a vaccine, a COVID-19 vaccine to fly, then yes, that would make me much more likely than any other answer to go and get the vaccine. So that kind of answers the question of what can properly motivate people to go and get those vaccines. So, but anyway, as far as Republicans are concerned, remember, they say they're about freedom, but it's really not. For them, it's actually about them wanting to be extremely selfish. And they have made that selfishness a part of their political identity. And so not having a sense of responsibility, of course, to their community or their fellow Americans during a time of crisis. It is selfishness. And also, let me just add, to give some nuance here, I think there are a chunk of those people who are maybe vaccine hesitant, but as a result of disinformation. Maybe these are people that mean well, but have come to believe things that they've heard on Fox News, on cable TV, on Newsmax, or in Facebook memes. And so I'm not saying we should like play super nicey nice with them, but I am saying that disinformation, that's where that comes from. Not only that, but again, I've got some examples. You've got OAN, of course, Newsmax, Fox News, other conservative media sources. Joe Rogan right now, huge proponent of vaccine and mass disinformation. And in fact, Bill Burr went on Rogan's program, and here's what he said. This was, of course, after Rogan said that mask wearing was for quote-unquote bitches. Quote, I don't want to start this bullshit. I'm not going to sit here with no medical degree, listening to you with no medical degree, with an American flag behind you smoking a cigar, acting like we know what's up better than the CDC. I wish more people who would go on Rogan would challenge these ridiculous beliefs, because right now he's doing way more harm to the American people because he's got millions of listeners. So big credit to Bill Burr for that, and I want to see more of that. And now, some of you might be thinking, who cares what a celebrity thinks, right? Why should I care about what Bill Burr or Joe Rogan would say? Well, I would say, in response to that, well, they have big audiences. They have influence. Bill Burr happens to have the facts on his side because he's agreeing with the people who actually know what's going on, the scientists and epidemiologists. He's on the right side of this issue. It's not that he is the arbiter of science. No, he's not the arbiter of science, but more so than like somebody like Joe Rogan is an arbiter of science. They're not. They're talking heads like me. But what we do is we rely on the science, and we rely on the reporting of scientific outlets and their studies and their factual information. And we need that. And we need more of these people who have these large platforms to go and challenge and defeat disinformation. So I think it's great to have people on our side when it comes to facts, because at the end of the day, as much as we hate it sometimes, people, large celebrities, comedians, well, they got big influence. And we should give them credit for using their platforms for good, to spread information, not disinformation. Yeah, credit to him. All right. That's it. That's all I got for y'all today. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. I do appreciate it. Let's check one more time for super chats or whatever. MEC says Bill Burr needs to read MTG for filth. I assume you don't mean Magic the Gathering. All right. Thank you, MEC. Thank you all of those who have donated. Madi Darno says, have a great weekend. Stay safe and sane. Thank you. You too as well. Let's see. Let's go over Twitch here. No. Okay, so look, if you want to help us out on Twitch, you can, of course, use your Bezos bucks and use your free Prime sub in order to sub to our channel. So again, that really, really helps out if you do that. Super chats, as I said before, or you can help me out more directly by going to our Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. And you can avoid paying Google, and you can avoid paying, getting a Prime sub, which does help Jeff Bezos. And so, Patreon, you can do that. All right. Anyway, have a great weekend, everybody. We will see you on Monday. once again, stay safe, stay sane. Love you all. And remember, change begins with you.
I like my new type.
Dumps. Big, massive dumps.
I have not worked with conversation.
Please clap. You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.